What is the typical down payment for a co-op apartment in New York City? We will demystify this topic in the following video. I'm Nick at Hauseit. We are the largest buyer agent commission rebate and for sale by owner company based here in New York City, established in 2014. Visit our website, hauseit.com, to learn about ways to save money when you're buying and selling in New York. The minimum down payment on a co-op apartment in New York City is typically 20%. In fact, the vast majority of co-op buildings will require a minimum down payment of 20%. This is much higher than for your typical house or condo. In particular, with a house, there are usually no restrictions on a minimum amount down beyond what your lender may require. Some condominiums do require a minimum of 10% down, although these types of regulations are fairly rare. The majority of buildings in the city that have restrictions are in fact co-op buildings, and that minimum is usually 20%. When you look at the gamut of co-ops in New York, it's important to keep in mind that there are some buildings which are much stricter or much more lenient than others. And in fact, there's really no way to predict when looking at the outside of a co-op building what the minimum down payment requirement will be. Most public real estate websites will not provide this information, so as a buyer, the best way to get it is to have your buyer's agent reach out and inquire with the listing agent, or if you happen to be unrepresented, you can certainly reach out directly to the listing agent. A stricter co-op in New York City can require anywhere up to 50–75% down, and in some cases a building might require literally an all-cash purchase. Again, there's no way to predict what a building will require. You can tend to generalize sometimes if you're looking at a building on, say, Fifth Avenue, for example, on the Upper East Side. A lot of these more established co-ops are very strict, and not only will they have fairly high minimum percentage downs, they'll also have other extremely stringent requirements for buyers, such as hefty post-closing liquidity requirements and very low debt-to-income ratio requirements. In particular, some buildings are so strict with post-closing liquidity that they can require purchasers to have up to 2 times of the purchase price in liquid assets and cash after closing. So what this means is if you're buying a $2 million apartment, the cooperative board will not approve your application unless they see that you will have $4 million in the bank left over after you've paid for your apartment and also after you've taken into consideration the closing costs on your purchase. The good news about co-ops is that all of these buyer financial requirements actually do help the financial integrity of the building overall. If you think about it, pretty much everybody in a co-op has been heavily vetted as far as the financials are concerned. So the risk of having one or multiple owners being delinquent on their common charges, or rather their maintenance in the case of a co-op, is fairly low. Condominiums, on the other hand, cannot simply reject buyers for not having amazing financials. A condo can really only reject a buyer if the condo uses its own money to purchase the apartment at the same price that the prospective purchaser was going to pay. Realistically though, the risk of having tons of unpaid common charges in a condo in New York City is fairly low. The reason being is that property prices are really high, and in order to be approved by a lender, even at a higher debt-to-income ratio that lenders underwrite to, which is low 40%, it still is pretty much going to be the case that most buyers are very qualified. So you can make the argument that co-op's financial vetting process is completely unnecessary and excessive. But the main benefit, aside from just having greater security with the building's financials, is the fact that co-ops are just way less expensive. A comparable condo could be 40% more money than a co-op that's exactly the same size. Co-ops also have lower buyer closing costs. So there are a lot of benefits to co-ops, despite the fact that you have to put down more money and the fact that there is a pretty rigorous co-op board application process. We hope you found this video helpful. If you have more questions about buying co-ops in New York, we have a ton of insight on our website, dedicated articles and videos to talk about things like debt-to-income ratio requirements, post-closing liquidity, the co-op closing timeline, etc. So visit our website, hauseit.com, and we hope to see you on the next one.